camps, but one night, a young man who was a troublemaker in our town, he was trying to burglarize our home. My father caught him, but he didn't turn him into the police. And I guess the man felt like he owed my father a favor. So he told my father the night before the Germans were supposed to get all of us and the rest of the Jewish families on the bus to go to the camps. So we escaped that night on horse and wagon and went to some of the surrounding towns where people hid us for a day or two at a time, different people, until we met up with some other families, Jewish families, that were running away as well. And together, we decided we were gonna pool our resources, and we built a hut in the forest. And we had gotten the help of one of the farmers who were gonna bring us food. And we were gonna pay him with whatever money and valuables we had. So we pooled everything. And that is how we survived for quite some time. So we built this hut through a small mat, so we had water running. And we lived there for quite a while. And I don't remember how long, but I remember there were approximately like 18 of us. I think there were like 5 or 6 families. So it must have been a pretty large hut. Marilyn Ostreicher. My grandmother was quiet. That's what I remember about her. From Sundays in Betty's basement. A very proper woman, very little English. I remember going to her house and eyeing a little salt and pepper shaker set. I love miniatures. And she read my mind and she said, "Marilyn, would you like these?" And I nodded, and she lovingly handed them to me. I wish I had them now. They weren't like they hugged you all the time, but they weren't the grandparents that went on and on like, ah, but I think they had been too much, been through too much in the war, really. She was in the camps too? No, only my mom was in the camps. The rest of the family hid in the woods. I heard my grandma Shackney, she went catatonic in hiding, and then all of a sudden she just started talking after the war. Well, listen, she lost her firstborn son, and she was probably trying to deal with it the rest of her life. I don't know anything about him, Samuel. My mom would talk about him sometimes. He was smart, my mother, she was the closest to them, and she adored him. She told me that they were hiding in a tobacco farm. Samuel, my grandmother, and her younger sister Betty. She and her sister were playing outside. The Nazis came, they grabbed her and they beat her. Then when the Nazis approached the girls, my mom's brother, Samuel, he screamed, "Take me instead of my sisters," and so they did. My grandma always felt guilty that he gave up his life for her and Betty. He was the kind of brother that you have. They would run into the streets for you, and that's the kind of brother that Samuel was. So the Nazis put him in a local camp, and Grandma and Aunt Betty would sneak to that jail where he was. One time, they peered down the window, and they saw him with his hands spread up to the pane. My mother never forgot those hands, tied up in chains. Everyone else in the family survived, so Grandma always felt guilty. I heard that he and some other guys, they tried to escape by climbing a fence, and they were electrocuted. Grandma told me that later she went to a synagogue in America where on the bima there was an image of 2 hands in the same position. It's horrible when you think about it, how close they were, and then all of a sudden she saw him once and they looked at his hands through the floor, and he was on the other side of the wall during the war, and they saw him once, and I don't know if they were able to make contact, but they saw him through a wall, and it could be a movie. I mean, you look down and see those hands. Mom, that sounds like a story that could have been built up over time. No, I know this is true. Well, you don't know if it's true. Oh, I know. Like when Grandma was telling me, she was telling me the facts of the facts. Mom, but that's how memory works. If we tell a story again and again in our heads, eventually it becomes true in our heads. No, I know this was true. David Shackney. No. So basically, here's the story. They were all, in terms of age, was, the brother who died, I think it was, what was his name? I don't know, but I'll tell you, it's in the genealogy. If you see it, it's all there. Just trust the genealogy. I don't know if he was in the same camps, but what I know is that as soon as Czechoslovakia was invaded, he was taken away, Samuel. He was probably 18 or 19, and they didn't want any boys that age to be able to fight the Nazis, so they took the younger boys away immediately. As soon as they came, they took them, and apparently Samuel died pretty quickly. From what my father told me, and again, I don't know exactly what happened, but apparently he was responsible for removing the bodies, and he couldn't take it. And one person said he tried to escape, and another person said he tried to run against a fence to take his own life, but Cheryl Shiner. Oh, I don't know that story. No, I don't know that one. I think the story I heard was that your grandmother was working on a tobacco farm. Did you hear that? Her father sent her and Betty to hide, and that was how she was caught. I think that is when your grandmother Hannah was taken, and I know she had a husband that was killed. My Aunt Betty knew him, but she didn't say much. Just that he was strong and handsome, and your grandma was crazy about him. So strong. I don't know what that meant, but yeah, that he was wonderful, and that's all I know. And I don't know anything else, just everybody loved him. And then they went to the camps. I think there are a few stories that we all know, but as a kid, they wouldn't tell anything. No, not really, no. But we didn't ask. We were kids. I mean, we were into our own lives. It was different generations, you know. The cousins were friends, and the adults were friends, and we didn't have serious conversation with our aunts and uncles. The get-togethers were just fun. I don't know. What the adults would do. We'd eat lots of food, lemon bars. Did anyone tell you about the lemon bars? and we would all play. Oh, and your mom and I, we had a charm collection. Like in those little machines, we'd get those charms. And that's what we'd play with when we all got together. Just add to our charm collections. Maybe later on, we tried to figure it all out. What age? Like in my teens, I started hearing more and more stories about it, but not from mom or dad. I think there are stories, maybe like Eli Wiesel books I read, and that was how I learned more about it. I think there are stories that all the kids have heard, and that's it. Only like little stories, like one story that Shmuel was taken away, and it was Hanukkah time. And my father remembers they had a busload of kids, young kids, that they were taking away. And he remembers Aunt Betty running after the bus with a plate of latkes. She must have been like 10. Shmuel, Samuel, Shmuel. I don't know anything else about the older brother, just the name, Shmuel. And when he was in the camps, the only other story I heard was that he killed himself against a fence, the electrical fence, because you heard that too? Oh, good. She told me that they wanted to make him like a capo. Do you know what that is? Like someone who would make decisions about the other Jews and like hit them or whatever, and he just couldn't do it, so he killed himself. Your mom must have heard that too, from Hannah, right? No? No, I could have sworn she heard that before. Or Betty running after the bus with latkes? That doesn't ring a bell? Uncle Morris. Samuel never had a chance at life. He died at the age of 20 in Auschwitz concentration camp. He was the first to be taken to the labor camps when those gray buses used to show up to take the young men to the labor camps. I remember the whole family was out in town where the buses were, standing, just picking them up, where all the families were saying goodbye to the young men. We never saw Samuel again. I don't remember how old he was. He may have been 17. But we found out after the war that he had died at 20. When the Germans kept such terrific records, they were so exact with all the records they keep of everyone's life and death. And it was, as a matter of fact, it was my grandson, Jordan, Cheryl's son, who was an exchange student in Germany. He went to a museum and discovered those records in the basement of the museum, and he had given me that information. That was the first time I found out that when my brother had died. That was just a coincidence. It has always been a puzzlement to me for my survival. because I was such a sick child, and knowing that many of my friends did not survive after the war, or my oldest brother, unfortunately, everyone is gone right now, except for my brother Benjamin and myself. I can't even imagine how life would be different without the war, and all those millions who perished and were tortured. Will human beings ever live in peace? I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. Certainly doesn't seem that way. I know with all the new inventions and computers, and I know all the new things coming, you can just imagine how wonderful the world would be if people didn't just try to kill each other all the time. Benji Sheppy. I was 10 when we came here, in 1947. Morris and I, yes, we were close, but he went, as far as I remember, for a number of years, he went to a yeshiva in Cleveland or something like that, but we were good friends. My parents sent me to yeshiva, but when I was in high school, I got jobs, and I think it was kind of harder, to keep kosher and stuff like that. And when I got my first job out of college, I was like a busboy in the mountains, and I think I changed from there. I sort of lost part of my religion. In the Catskills, I don't know what they have now, but they had loads of hotels and the best pay. But I do recall it was hard to keep kosher there, and I guess I was already, after the war and even after yeshiva, I was starting to lose my faith. My father sold fruits, I think, because he did so much merchant work and things like that, and he made a lot of contacts in the town. Those were the people that gave us the information, something about the war starting. Mostly word of mouth among us Jews. You'd hear things like, so basically, we were foretold by various people, some of the Goyim. I think my father made the decision once he heard all that it was time to run. He was a pretty brave man, so we had to go into hiding, so he had people that did us favors or something. There was a story that someone in the family mentioned when I was young. This was early in the war. We hid somebody. I'm not even sure, maybe it was my brother or what, but we had someone hidden in our basement. Like there was a door to the kitchen or living room with a rug over it, and that led you downstairs. So when the Germans came, apparently I was aware of what was going on, so I just sat on top of the trap door. So when the Germans were there, I would just go down and sit on this rug. I don't remember this incident myself. This I know because people told me. I have some memories in hiding, but I'm sure they're similar to the ones Morris remembers. Maybe they're just Morris's memories. I knew it was crowded. It was crowded in hiding. It must have been like a log cabin or something, but it was definitely crowded. And I remember another family was there, and I guess we all had gotten along. I don't remember any fighting or anything. Not much room. Basically, we all stayed close to the house, and we did take walks, and we tried to be outside every so often. I remember being there with the other families and hearing that the Germans were going to pick us up there. So we ran. Uncle Morris. Now one day, by accident, a German patrol had gotten lost overnight, and he happened to wander into our hut, and we had our prayer shawls on. So they asked, "What are you doing here?" And I don't remember who answered, but one of the men answered that we were here waiting for the Germans to pick us up. And being that the Germans were actually lost, one German was standing outside with a grenade, and if we had any kind of weapon and we used it, we would have all been killed by the grenade. But fortunately, we didn't have any weapons. So the other German came in, and there were only 2 of them, but 18 of us.